Welcome to the Profitable Productivity Podcast. I'm your host, Rosetta Washington, and our aim with the podcast is to do a deep dive into the essential skills that empower nonprofit leaders to thrive. And I want to open today's episode by asking you a question. When was the last time you ended your workday thinking, today I was able to make real progress on my to-do list instead of just managing crises? Well, for a lot of leaders, that moment is pretty rare because instead of strategizing, mentoring, and building your team, you're typically chasing down accountability, maybe even fixing some communication gaps and picking up the slack. But here's the thing, it's not because you're a bad leader. It's because you're probably making a few common leadership mistakes that are slowing your team down. The good news is you can fix them really quickly once you know what they are. So today, I'm breaking down 3 leadership pitfalls that I see all the time, and I'm going to give you practical strategies to turn those things around. Now, before we dive into today's topic, here's a quick win to help you combat those common team slowdowns. Start using a weekly wins and challenges document. What you do is have each one of your team members jot down their biggest win and challenge from the week. Review it together in a team meeting briefly. We're not going to go into too much detail there, but review it briefly. This is going to help to promote transparency. It addresses issues quickly, and it celebrates the successes that your team members are having. It addresses accountability, communication, and alignment all at one time, right? So it can be a really great strategy to help you to bridge the gap between those common pitfalls that we see. All right. Now that we've gotten through our quick win for the day, let's dive into our topic and address pitfall number 1, which is lack of clear accountability. Now, here's the thing. Most leaders think that they're holding their teams accountable, but in reality, they're often just kind of checking in sporadically and hoping for the best. And you've probably seen what the result is of that. Missed deadlines, half-finished projects, maybe even that awkward moment when you go to your team member and ask, hey, where's that report? Only for them to look back at you kind of confused and be like, oh, I thought you meant next week. Oh my gosh, that always sucks. But here's how you can fix that. First, you want to get very specific with your expectations. If you were to say, hey, can you get this done by Friday? You're leaving room for them to interpret rather than being clear. So you want to say something along the lines of, I'd like to review this before my 3 p.m. meeting on Friday. So if you could get this to me by noon, that'll give me plenty of time to do that. Making that small tweak or that shift in how you present it is going to help to eliminate any ambiguity. Secondly, you want to follow through consistently, right? Like if you set a standard, you have to stick to it. Check in regularly with your team members, not just when things are going wrong, because when your team knows that you'll hold them to the standard every single time, accountability becomes the norm, not the exception. One of the ways that I did this when I was still working full time was I had weekly one-on-one meetings with my team. Now I had a small team, so I was able to do weekly one-on-ones. Maybe you have a larger team and that's, or a larger amount of direct reports, and that's not really feasible for you. You set the timing of that. But for me, it was weekly. And part of that meeting at the end was to determine accountability for things that we talked about during the meeting. Not only accountability for my staff, but accountability for me for things that I promised to get to them for them to be able to be successful. So we each had dates of when we were going to have those items to one another, right? Leaders lead and leaders go first. So that means you've got to hold yourself accountable before you can even begin to hold your team accountable. All right, let's shift into pitfall number 2, which is ineffective communication, right? Similarly to the example we used before, you may be assigned a project and assume that all the details were crystal clear, but somehow what you got in the end didn't look anything like what you were expecting it to. Why? Well, because your team and you were speaking 2 different languages or multiple different languages. And even though you thought that you were all on the same page. So here's how to fix that. Give a clear definition of done. Rather than say, do said task, give them a definition of what the end result of that task looks like. Be as specific as possible. Even over communicate if you need to, right? I know that you're busy, but if you leave out key details in order to save time, you're actually going to end up creating more work for yourself later. If your team doesn't have the full context, or the person you're making the assignment to doesn't have the full context, then they're going to start making assumptions, and you're going to have to jump in and fix whatever assumptions they made. So it's easier if you're just crystal clear up front. It's going to save you time and headaches down the line. You can also use clarifying questions to help you to make sure that the individual understands. So when you assign the task to them, say, just to confirm, what are the next steps, right? This gives your team or team member an opportunity to reflect back what they heard from you so that you can catch any gaps immediately rather than waiting down the line. Now let's shift into our final pitfall, which is lack of alignment. Now, you know that your team is talented. You know that they're smart, that they're capable people, but somehow they're not all pulling in the same direction, right? It's kind of like watching a rowboat where everyone is paddling on their own rhythm, right? Paddles are clinking against one another. You're essentially paddling against each other rather than working together, right? You'll get somewhere eventually, right? But it's going to be slow, it's going to be frustrating, and it's going to be exhausting. It also may not be where you desire to get. So here's how you fix that. Have regular alignment check-ins. Don't assume that everyone is on the same page. You want to confirm that regularly. Hold a quick weekly sync meeting where you are. You want to review top priorities, clarify responsibilities, even ask, does everyone have what they need in order to move forward? This quick 5-minute check-in can save you hours of confusion later on. You also want to clarify roles and expectations. When people aren't sure who owns what, it starts to create these overlaps, and that can lead to dropped balls as well as frustration. So be very explicit, even if it feels like it's obvious to you. What you think is clear to them may not necessarily be, right? So here's the big question. Think about the 3 pitfalls that I just reviewed and identify like which one of them is slowing your team down. Are you struggling with accountability and chasing down deadlines? Are you dealing with miscommunication that creates this kind of constant confusion among your team members? Or are you fighting against an alignment issue that kind of ends up leaving your team working in silos rather than collaborating together for a common goal? No matter which one it is, or if it's all three of them or a combination, if you're ready to fix it, I've got something just for you. I'm getting ready to launch my teamwork tune-up leadership accelerator. It starts on April 28th, and it's designed specifically for leaders like you who want to strengthen trust, communication, and collaboration, increase that team accountability and performance, and finally get out of that place of firefighting all the time so that you can actually lead your team. Now you might be saying, well, Trisetta, what is the Leadership Academy or Leadership Accelerator, excuse me. It's a 6-week group coaching program that I designed specifically for you, right? What you'll get inside is 6 weekly live coaching sessions, right? That begin on April 28th. Each week we'll have a 90-minute session. It'll be 1 hour of training and exercises with 30 minutes of Q&A and support. You'll get some practical strategies and tools that you can start to apply immediately. Not only that, you're going to get a supportive group of like-minded leaders that you can grow with. And if you enroll by April 1st, you will get a 1-hour VIP coaching session with me included in your package for no additional cost, right? And during that private session, we'll tackle what your biggest team challenges are head on. A limited number of seats are available, so I don't want you to miss your chance to lead your team with more confidence and less stress. So go ahead, click the link in the show notes or go to visit theteamworktuneup.com to grab your spot now. And I hope that I will see you inside the Leadership Accelerator. Well, that's all I've got for you today. I want to say thank you for joining me on the Profitable Productivity Podcast. I hope that you found this episode helpful. And until next time, keep leading with purpose and passion.